Another day, another game mode disappears with no explanation from Battlefield 6. First, it was Strike Point. Okay, fair enough, Strike Point didn't strike me as a game mode that was considered to be a fan favorite. However, DICE did come out and say they are going to be re-adding Strike Point to the game at a later date, but then they removed King of the Hill and Squad Deathmatch. Squad Deathmatch, I understand it. Honestly, didn't have any fun playing that game mode. I thought it's a complete camp fest, and it just played like shit. So, go ahead, remove that. I have absolutely no qualms regarding that. King of the Hill? I don't know about that. That's a little questionable. But today, they removed Rush. And I didn't stutter. They removed Rush from Battlefield 6. Let's talk about it. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the sub button, and as always, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. So, shout out to you guys. Now, why would DICE remove all of these game modes with no communication? Well, the obvious thought is it's no big deal, and they're going to re-add them, and maybe they're tweaking something in the back end to improve matchmaking and all this sort of stuff. I believe in a recent community update, they did mention they're going to try to streamline the matchmaking experience. So perhaps in a future update, they will explain why they removed these game modes while also re-adding them to the game. But that is not good enough, in my opinion, because they're just randomly doing this. And it is actively pissing people off. I've seen complaints about this the entire day. I got many comments in my stream earlier today that people were upset. But after a few more people came in the stream and asked me if I saw that they removed Rush from the game, I remembered something. Do you guys remember the beta of Battlefield 6 where we got to play Rush for the very first time? And everyone was complaining about it, calling it really shit. And it was true, it was not good. It was certainly not as good as the just staple, incredible Rush experiences of previous titles. It doesn't come close to playing Rush on Battlefield 3 maps that were specifically designed for the experience. So from the very beginning, people disliked Rush in Battlefield 6. So, do we have to keep the game mode of the game just because it's Rush? I don't think so, actually. And this is where the hot take of the video comes in. If they do permanently remove these game modes, I think King of the Hill is the only game mode that should come back. I don't think Rush is good enough to warrant a matchmaking slot. I don't think Squad Deathmatch is good enough either. And with the amount of people that I see complaining about bot lobbies, I think people should be happy that there are less matchmaking options, because the less matchmaking that is going on between different game modes, the more filled other types of game modes are going to be. But Enders, you can't remove Rush. It's a Battlefield staple. You can't. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Now, I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying it's going to be permanent. All I'm saying is, if it is permanent, I wouldn't really care, because I've played Rush in this game, and it's not that fucking good. In fact, personally, I've always thought that Battlefield games in recent times have had way too many game modes for their own good, especially with this Hulu UI tile system, where you have the multiplayer menus and custom search and portal and the new featured modes and the community experiences. It's like, how many ways are we splitting this player base? Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Rush is a bad game mode. I think the Battlefield 6 version of Rush is just not that great. And in a perfect scenario, the only game modes you feature in a Battlefield game have to be absolutely fantastic. So you would feature things like Frontlines, get rid of Breakthrough, just delete it from the game. And if you're going to have a Breakthrough attack defend game mode at a large scale, make sure it's properly developed Grand Operations Battlefield 1 style. Then, of course, you have to include Conquest. And alongside Conquest, the newly introduced Escalation from Battlefield 6 seems to be another fan favorite mode. So, just right then and there, let's count. So that's 4 game modes. We got Frontlines, Grand Operations, Conquest, and Escalation. You only really got maybe 2 or 3 more game modes you should realistically fit into the game as main playlists. And I think those main playlists, in a perfect world, should probably be Domination, Team Deathmatch, because you always have to have Team Deathmatch in a first-person shooter, and then, if they actually want to design it correctly, you can fit in Rush. But the problem with that is, how are you possibly going to design some of these maps in the game to facilitate two different linear game modes in Rush and Breakthrough, and also two different non-linear game modes in Conquest and Escalation? The answer is, you probably just fucking aren't. So that explains why certain maps don't have Breakthrough layouts and certain maps don't have Escalation layouts. You see, around the time of Battlefield 1, when Grand Operations first came onto the scene and we had this large-scale sector-based linear game mode, that is where you can pin down some key map design differences going into the future titles, and it just genuinely made it very difficult to adapt a lot of different game modes to these maps, because inevitably, and you saw this a ton in 2042, and in Battlefield 6 as well, if you want a large-scale linear game mode, you're going to have it flow from end to end and have it make sense. But because a lot of these maps are only taking into consideration Conquest and Breakthrough and now Escalation, some of the other game modes like Rush, which are fan favorites, they do get thrown by the wayside, and that is what we felt in the beta of Battlefield 6. Rush is no longer even a main game mode when it comes to Battlefield games. It is very, very clear from their design direction over the past 3 Battlefield titles, Breakthrough and larger scale linear game modes have overtaken that map design focus. Moving ahead in future Battlefield titles, I would absolutely love to see them put far more emphasis into Rush. I think people like having a smaller player count bomb defusal game mode with attackers and defenders. The problem is, if you don't design maps specifically for it, what ends up happening is the game mode sucks, and it gets removed from the game, like we see today. We shall see if it is intentional and if Rush stays removed from Battlefield. That is all I have for you today. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments section down below. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit the like button, hit the sub button, swing by the streams. I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders and this very YouTube channel. Check out my brand new second channel where I'm also posting regular content that will be linked in the description and maybe the pinned comment. Appreciate you guys so much for watching the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.